twisted. Oh, you didn't know that you was gifted. You ain't know that stuff you went through just set you up for winning. You ain't know. Oh, you ain't know that you was chosen. You ain't know that you was golden. You ain't know you was important. Oh, you ain't know you had a purpose much bigger than anything you ever considered. Oh, you ain't know. Well, I'ma be your mirror. Look. You have something.
Y'all, welcome to the Mommy Dearest Podcast. For those of you guys who are new to my voice, I am Mimi, spiritual teacher, educator, shaman, spiritual healer, and a variety of other titles in which I have. And I'm just here to share with you guys, man. Share from my heart space, share from a place of love, share from a place of vulnerability, and share my story and hopefully help somebody out there. This podcast, the Mommy Dearest Podcast, is a podcast that's going to share my experiences about growing up with a narcissistic mother and the mother wounds in which it caused me, the abandonment wounds which it caused me, as well as a lot of other wounds that it caused me that it took me years to unpack, to unfold, to the point that I can even talk about it now. For a large part of my life, I feel like I was protecting my abuser. I was protecting the person that made me feel small at any given opportunity. And I'm no longer doing that. I'm sharing my voice and I hope it touches somebody out there. So let's get to it. What is mother wounds? If you're here for the first time and you've never heard of mother wounds are wounds in which we experience by our mother or maternal figure, which typically it gets passed down through generations. What does that mean? That means that typically, if your mother had a bad relationship with her mother and she did not choose to shift or transmute that energy, correct it, she winds up becoming that mother that has a bad relationship with her children. It winds up being a mother who just inflicts unnecessary pain, emotional pain. It could be physical pain, it could be emotional pain, verbal pain. It could be any kind of pain to their children. At the time their children grows up now, they wind up having these wounds. And these wounds are so insidious because they hide in the cracks of all of our relationships. So throughout each episode, I'm going to give you more information about mother wounds, the different ways in which I learned to identify my mother wounds, as well as just share pieces of my story. I'm in the process of writing a book about this. And so each episode, I'm going to share pieces of my book. So you have to tune in order to hear the stories because they're going to be good and they're going to be juicy and you're just going to wish that you tuned in. So let's get to it. I have been a practicing shaman for the last, I feel like my entire life, but actually doing it as a profession for the last 10 years. And I can't say profession, it's just a part of who I am because it's just a part of my identity. Like people always come to me for dreams, advice, visions, interpretations, all that stuff. But I didn't realize that was a gift. And that's a big part of this story because growing up in my household with my mom and I had these spiritual gifts, she really took every opportunity in order to let me know that my gifts were not unique. So she'd be like, oh no, I'd be like, hey, I had a dream about X, Y, and Z and this happened. And she'd be like, oh, that's nothing serious. Don't pay that no mind. That's not a real gift. That's not going to happen. So for a large part of my life, I had spiritual gifts and I didn't realize it because I was constantly being told that they were not unique or they weren't spiritual gifts at all. The thing is, my mother is spiritual as well. She has spiritual gifts as well. And I don't know if her mother did that to her. And to be honest, I really don't care. I just realized that after a while, I had to be like, no, this lady is fucking lying. Like I got gifts. But it took a long time for me to build my confidence in those gifts because when you're continuously being told by anyone, not just a mother, by anyone, that the thing that you think makes you unique doesn't make you unique at all, you begin to believe that. And that's what we are talking about when it comes to narcissism, because that is a narcissist's favorite trick, to make you believe that there's nothing special about you, that you are just a run-of-the-mill person. And so that way they can control you for a lot longer. So for me, I did not have a good relationship with my mother growing up. I didn't have one at all. It was a lot of stress. It was a lot of putting me down. And how I combated that in my early years was that I just be like, whatever, this lady's crazy. I would find any opportunity to leave the house. I would go out with my friends. Every time I went to a new school, I tried to make the school be as far away as possible. That way I had more travel time so that I didn't have to be in the house with her. It was like intuitively, I knew that she wasn't a safe person, but the inner child in me that just wanted a mother felt like I just needed to keep trying. And believe me when I tell you, she made sure that I kept trying and trying and trying. So nothing I could have ever done was ever good enough for her. Nothing I could have ever done for her was ever good enough for her. And it was sad. It was sad. Like, anytime I think about it now, like, I can talk to you now about it and not freaking be in freaking tears, because I would just talk about it and I'd well up, because I felt like the little girl in me had just wanted a mom her entire life, or someone who cared for her, someone who loved her, but instead received a woman who was hurt and bruised. And so as a result, she did her best to hurt and bruise her daughters. It was just hard. It was hard. As a Gemini, I am somebody, I'm naturally prone to give love and just share of my big heart. And especially I'm Cancer rising, so please don't leave any Cancer hate in the comments, because listen, I get it. As a Cancer rising, I am prone to just want to share love and give love. And I feel like I did that every day in my relationship with my mother growing up. But when it's not reciprocated, it can be disheartening. So some of the mother wounds that I was able to identify with myself, I'm going to share 2 of those, and I'm going to jump right into my story. Actually, I'm going to jump into my first introduction as well as chapter 1 of my story, which is the story I started writing. That's why the episodes are only available for 1 week, because this is a book that is currently in the process of being written. I want to make sure that I am aligning with my audience, because eventually the book is going to come out. One of the mother wounds that I was able to identify, not until later in life, was that I did not have a good relationship with women. And I say that again, I didn't have a good relationship with women. I had women friends. I was always somebody that always attracted a lot of friends, because look at the material. Why wouldn't I, right? Like, I always had a lot of friends around me. But I did not have great relationship with women. And I would say this too. I would be like, I don't know. I just don't have a good relationship with women. I don't know. I just don't have a good relationship with women. I tend to click more with men, which was true at the time. But I didn't realize that that was a wound, because who's the first woman that you get to meet in your life once you're born? Your mother. So if you don't have a relationship there, if you don't have a good relationship there, it translates to your other relationships with women, because you tend to respond to women in the ways in which you responded to your mom. So anytime I would have any friends and the friends would like act funny in a certain kind of way, so I get jealous, envious, or whatever, I would ditch them. Oh, I'm sorry, I laugh, because listen, as a healer, I heal too. You know what I mean? Like, I have to go through my own healing journey. But I would ditch them. I would stop being their friends. I wouldn't even let them know sometimes. And I didn't realize that was a pattern, because in my mind, it was justified. It was like, yeah, this person started acting crazy. They started acting jealous. They started acting possessive, which were the traits of my mother. And so I would just stop talking to them. So in my mind, it was legit. It wasn't until sometime later, I was in therapy, and I was just like, I don't have any female friends. She's like, why? I said, I attract them if everything goes great, but then I don't know, something happens. And that when I explained that to her, she was like, don't you see a pattern there? And I was just like, oh my gosh. It's like me dealing with my mom, because that's what I would do with my mom. Anytime she'd start getting on her tangents or start going crazy or start saying mean things, I would just leave. I would leave. I did everything in my power to leave my mother's home. I moved out in my 20s, but even before that, I went away to college 6 hours away. Mind you, I had never even visited the school before I went, but in my mind, I said, anything is better than here. Anything is better than here. Being around somebody who's constantly putting you down, who's constantly trying to make you feel like less than. I could be dressed to the nines, like going out in the most beautiful outfit, and she would have something negative to say. So in the moment, I just thought this was just my mother. But as I got older and through therapy and just my own healing work, I realized, no, that was somebody who was hurt, trying to hurt me. And it worked, because I was bruised. I was bruised. Not so much that I wanted to bruise other people, but so much so that I didn't want to allow other people to get close to me. And that's hard. That's hard, because we live in a world where we need people. I don't care what nobody tells you. We need people. You need community. You need women in your life who are going to support you. Women who are going to honor you. Women who are going to be your tribe. We need that. As women, we need that. So I'm here to share with anyone who's ever experienced anything like this. It is going to be okay. There is another side to this. You do not have to stay. You do not have to keep feeling like I was feeling for a long time. Like, oh, it's your mother. Oh, she doesn't mean it. And continuing to pacify her, which made me begin to accept the abuse from other people. Because abuse is abuse. Abuse is abuse. It doesn't matter if it's coming from your parents, a spouse, partner, friendship, whatever. But wherever the abuse started, if you don't nip that shit in the bud, it's going to pass down into your other relationships. So I realized I would make excuses for other people. I would make excuses when friends would say slick shit. I would make excuses when whoever I was dating would like say mean things or like do mean things. And I would give them passes. Because if you can't see your abuser, it's going to be hard for you to see anybody else who comes to abuse you. Even if it's manipulation, even if it's jealousy, envy, or any of those things, it's going to be hard for you to see anybody else because you cannot see and identify your abuser, which is why it's important to identify your abuser, guys. It's important. Put a freaking label to that person's face because abusers do not deserve the right to continue to walk in their abuse and continuously abuse you. So I am in a no contact space right now with my mom. And I am okay with that. No contact because listen, I said my voice is loud, my heart is big, and I want to continue to be the love in which I am. And I don't want anyone to make me feel bad about myself. So in order to spare myself, I have to go no contact. I have to do what's best for me. As you are identifying your own mother wounds, I urge you to trust yourself, trust your voice, trust the voice inside that's telling you this is hurtful. Somebody who loves you wouldn't do that. Somebody who loves you wouldn't say that. Trust that and let that lead you. Don't listen to anyone else who's trying to convince you that this is your mother, she loves you, she's this, that's just who she is. Don't listen. Because the more you listen to that, the more you're going to pacify that person. The more you are going to accept their abuse, and the abuse is going to trickle down into your other relationships. So at this point, I'm going to share a piece of my story, which I'm writing about right now. It doesn't have a solid title. I was thinking about naming it after this podcast, Mommy Dearest, but who knows? Feel free to chime in the comments and let me know what you think I should name it. And let's get to it. All right. This is my story. And I would love for you to leave your comments, the things that resonated with you, anything that you felt inspired by in the comments. For centuries, researchers have studied the harried relationships between mothers and daughters. They've even linked this relationship as the predominant contributing factor to how a woman will navigate all of the love relationship experiences in her lifetime. As pivotal as this relationship may be, many of us were not raised by the mother that kissed our boo-boos when we were hurt. Many of us were raised by a broken woman that looked good, smelled good, and tried to do all the right things as long as others were watching. But behind closed doors, she was a menace to her children, spewing out hateful words that would leave emotional and often physical scars they'd spend decades trying to heal from. For many of us, this was our first introduction to love. At least for me it was. As a kid, I wanted nothing more than to feel the love of this harmful woman. And she did everything in her power to keep it from me. That is, until I stopped seeking it. That was when her once physical and emotional attacks became spiritual. By my definition, a picturesque mother is a woman that meticulously goes out of her way to convince everyone that she is the best mother, with only her children and her spouse knowing who she truly is behind closed doors. And this reality is often a stark contrast to the image she portrays. Follow me on this journey as I share my courageous story of how I endured the vice grip of my picturesque mother and survived the mental and emotional trauma this relationship ensued. After decades of denial, I'd finally removed the rose-colored glasses that I'd adopted to keep from admitting how detrimental my picturesque mother was to my well-being. It was like seeing her for the very first time. With my vision no longer obstructed, I chose to look at her through the eyes of the 5-year-old version of me that wanted nothing more than to be loved by her. But instead, she chose to manipulate, extort, and physically and emotionally abuse me while disguising it as love. The courage of that 5-year-old girl has inspired me to tell the whole truth, no matter the consequences. 5-year-old Mimi was not concerned with keeping her abuser's secrets, but with sharing her truth to remember who she was and has always been, a bubbly spirited girl with a huge heart and a deep desire to set the world on fire. If you've picked up this book looking for the June Cleaver archetypal mother, I encourage you to put it down and go about your day. This is not what you'll find here. Here you'll find the raw and uncut truths of a broken woman that answered the call to motherhood and made her children pay the price of that call, whether emotionally, physically, mentally, and in some cases, spiritually. See, that was just the introduction, guys. So I'm sure you felt like, what? Wow. Oh my God. So we're going to read a couple of paragraphs in chapter 1 and we're going to close it out, okay? Chapter 1, my mom. 2 things can be true at the same time, said my therapist, after I shared how much I love my mother and the intense pain she'd caused me since childhood and well into my adult life. My therapist's response shifted my entire world, because this meant that my black or white concept of my mother was being torn down in my mind. And this new information charted a new mind map where I was able to clearly define the role my mother played in my story. She was my abuser. The presence of a powerful woman is not just seen, but felt. Her essence enters the room long before she walks in. This was my mother, blank, blank, blank. She was a force of life. When she set her mind to something, everything around her was inadvertently consumed in the eye of the tornado that suddenly surrounded her. I watched her use her power to effortlessly intimidate a sheeply furniture salesman into giving her more than 70% off her desired dining room set. That's who she was, guys. I watched him squirm and fluster while sweating profusely before finally acquiescing to her request. He just encountered the storm that was my mother for the very first time. I vividly remember the feeling I felt as a young girl, watching a man twice my mother's age cower to her simple wide-eyed smile. It felt wrong. What I didn't know at the time was that over the next few decades, I'd come to resent that manipulative smile that she'd perfect to get me to betray my own boundaries just to please her. After she'd signed all the necessary paperwork, I looked up to see a defeated salesman. His face was sullen and dejected. I asked my mom if he was mad at us, to which he replied, "Why would he be mad? He just made a big sale." Unaware of the casualties she just left behind, the man stood up from the desk and said, "Your dining set will be delivered by the weekend." The salesman planted his hands firmly on the desk, leaning toward my mother and said, "And never come back here again." She scoffed and grabbed my hand as we headed towards the door. I looked over my shoulder one last time to see the man almost in tears. I looked up at my mom as she smiled victoriously. At that moment, I knew she wasn't just my mom, but she was also a monster. At the time, I didn't quite have the words to describe what I felt from that salesman in the moment. All I knew was that it simply felt wrong. As my mother weighed him down with her seemingly innocent charm, I saw how uncomfortable he became. He had set his limit to no more than 20% off. My mother ignored that and proceeded to bulldoze her way right over his limit, and she'd go on to do the same to my boundaries every day of my life. That was the introduction of my new book, as well as a couple of paragraphs in the first chapter. So I would like to take this moment right now, because this is a heavy topic for a lot of people. I want to take this moment right now to just do some breath work. Breath work is one of the things that helped me to process as I was healing, to help me to release the emotions. So if you are ready, I would like to do some breath work with you. We're just going to take a couple of minutes to just breathe. Breathe deeply as we intake all the joy, love, and abundance that is here for us, and release all the negativity, frustration, and pain. Whether or not you've experienced narcissistic abuse or not, breath work is beneficial for everyone. So I encourage you to join me right now, and let's get it. This is called box breathing. With box breathing, you are following the same pattern for a set amount of time that's allowing you to release. As you breathe in, I want you to envision yourself breathing in all the best that this life has to offer. Your abundance, your love, your prosperity, everything that you felt like you couldn't have because somebody told you couldn't have it, because you felt like you couldn't have it, whatever it was. I want you to envision yourself breathing in that, and take a deep breath for a count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it right there. Hold that breath for a count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. As you release the breath now for a count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I want you to envision yourself releasing all the bad things that you were holding on to, all the doubt, the resentment, the guilt, the frustration, the pain, anything anyone told you that you couldn't have, any doubts that anybody could put in your mind, any doubts that you had about yourself. I want you to envision yourself releasing that with every exhale. And then we're going to rest for a count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now this is the real one. Before it was just play. Okay, so we're going to do this for a count of 5. So you with me? Let's go. We're going to do this 5 times. Deep breath, all the abundance for a count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold that breath. As you hold that breath, you're preparing for a count of 4, 3, 2, 1. You're preparing for everything you're going to release. As you release now for a count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, letting go of all that shit that you don't want. And you're going to relax for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 4 more times. Deep breath. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Release. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Rest for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 3 more times. Deep breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold that breath for a count of 4, 3, 2, 1. Release for a count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Relax into your body for a count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 more times. Deep breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold that breath for a count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release that breath for a count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Relax into your body for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now this is the last time, y'all. I want y'all to really get into it. Like, I want you to envision yourself really releasing all that shit that you were holding on to, releasing the things that anyone may have told you, releasing any feelings or pains that may have hurt you, anything that you felt just wasn't for you, that you've been holding on to, that have been causing you pain, words spoken against you, whatever it is. I want you to take this last breath right here, just let it all go. So breathing in for a count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Holding that breath for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Releasing the breath for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Settle into your body for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. You did it. Okay. Well, that was our first breath work as we releasing all the shit we don't want, calling in what we do want. So for anyone who's been a victim of any kind of narcissistic abuse, especially mother wounds, I want to say, I see you. You are seen. For anyone who is on their spiritual path and would like spiritual support, check me out. On April 9th, I have an upcoming spiritual protection workshop. This workshop is for those who are looking to learn tools and rituals and different things to do in order to protect their energy, protect their aura from just the energies that live in the spaces that we frequent, whether it's your job, whether it's relationships, whether it's friendships, just to make sure that you are always grounded. So this workshop is going to be dynamic. It's going to be amazing. It starts April 9th. So I'm going to drop the link in the bottom. Feel free to register and enroll. I'd love to see you there. Also, If you feel that you're being called to awaken your inner shaman, you've been experiencing dreams and visions, different spiritual things, you know you're a shaman, you are getting signs from your ancestors, you are feeling you are feeling the call. If you're feeling the call, you know you're feeling the call pretty much. If you are feeling it, I'm going to drop the link for that as well. I run a 1-year shamanic training apprenticeship program. And if you're feeling the call, I would love to support you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I look so forward to hearing all your stories, reading your comments. Tune in next week where I'll share some more of my story. Make sure you subscribe.
Release all the negative beliefs that you're dealing with. I know you can hear me. You know who you are. Identify with your greatness. Instead of your scars, let's let go of all these labels. You are not defective. Be the first to know your presence is a blessing.